Layla Khan stood on the balcony of her Dubai mansion, her hands gently resting on her growing belly, the silk of her lavender robe fluttering in the soft morning breeze. From up here, the view was breathtaking. Palm trees, gleaming skyscrapers, and the distant shimmer of the Persian Gulf. It was everything she had once dreamed of, and more. To the world, her life looked like a carefully curated fairy tale. Married to tech mogul Zayn Malik, the genius behind one of the world's leading AI platforms, and now carrying their first child. Their wedding had made headlines across international magazines, and every anniversary since had been celebrated with lavish posts and professionally shot photo shoots. They were influencers without trying, adored by followers who saw them as modern royalty. Zayn had recently closed a $200 million investment deal for his startup, and the congratulations poured in like rain, from Forbes profiles to exclusive business podcasts. Everyone wanted a piece of Zayn Malik. And Layla, with her elegance and calming presence, was always by his side. She had stood by him through years of hustle and long nights, quietly investing her time, energy, and ideas into the foundation of his success. Most people didn't know it, but she had been there during the beta tests, the coding marathons, and the nights when their bank account had been nearly empty. She wasn't just a trophy wife, she had been his partner in every way. But lately, things had started to feel different. Subtly at first. It was the way he no longer asked her how she was feeling in the mornings. The way his phone always seemed to be face down, or on silent. He began coming home later and later, brushing it off with vague mentions of investor dinners or strategy meetings. Even when he was home, he wasn't really present. He'd sit across from her at the dinner table scrolling through his phone, nodding absently at her updates about baby names or nursery colors. At night, he'd turn away from her in bed. Once, she'd woken up to find him whispering into his AirPods on the balcony at 2 a.m., and when she asked who it was, he simply replied, "Work call." But there was a tone in his voice she hadn't heard before, softer, more intimate, almost amused. That tone used to be reserved only for her. Layla tried to rationalize the distance. Maybe he was just stressed. Maybe the pressure of growing the company was taking its toll. But even as she told herself these things, a gnawing feeling grew in her chest. Her intuition, sharp, always accurate, was telling her something was off. He was slipping away from her, and she didn't know why. She had once believed that love, hard work, and loyalty were enough. But standing alone in a house filled with silent luxury, Layla realized that sometimes the most beautiful illusions are the ones that hide the deepest cracks. The morning sunlight spilled across the marble countertop as Layla stirred honey into her chamomile tea. The gentle hum of the housekeeper moving around the kitchen, and the distant sound of the sea outside were her usual companions these days. She was alone again. Zayn had left early for a supposed investor retreat in Ras Al Khaimah and hadn't even kissed her goodbye. Her appetite was minimal, but she forced herself to eat a slice of toast, knowing the baby needed nourishment even when she felt hollow inside. She picked up her phone and began her usual scroll through Instagram. Her feed was filled with pregnancy tips, nursery inspirations, and messages from well-wishers who followed her curated life. Her finger moved absent-mindedly across the screen, until she saw it. There it was. Zayn's latest post. It was a carefully staged photo, his hand intertwined with a delicate, manicured one. The backdrop was unmistakably tropical. Palm trees, a beach cabana, and the faint outline of a private resort's infinity pool behind them. The camera angle was artful, casual but deliberate. The caption read, "Found peace in places I never expected." Her thumb hovered motionless over the screen. For a long second, she didn't process what she was seeing. Then her eyes flicked to the tag beneath the photo. At Amara Sheikh. She tapped the name. The profile opened, a striking woman with sun-kissed skin, waist-length black hair, and a body sculpted by Pilates and perfection. 800,000 followers. Bio, model, influencer, wellness muse, here to inspire herb sparkles. The last few posts were of Amara sipping from a coconut, lounging in a satin robe on a balcony, and laughing in a silk dress by the same pool Zayn had claimed to be near, for meetings. Layla's stomach twisted violently. A sharp surge of nausea rose in her throat, and she barely made it to the sink before vomiting. Her body shook as she gripped the edge of the counter, gasping for breath. It wasn't just morning sickness. It was heartbreak, betrayal, and shock tearing through her all at once. She wiped her mouth, her vision still blurred. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was public. Zion had flaunted his affair with an influencer, knowing the whole world would see. Knowing she would see. No explanations. No apologies. Just a photograph, a caption, and a tag. Layla stared at her reflection in the stainless steel refrigerator, her eyes red, her lips pale, her pregnancy glow replaced by a sickly pallor. All the years, the loyalty, the sacrifices, reduced to a single Instagram post. She reached for her phone again, her fingers trembling. Not to message him. Not to beg. But to screenshot the post, tag the moment, and remember it for what it was. The exact second her world fell apart. Layla sat curled on the edge of the bed, her phone still resting on the nightstand, the screen dark now, but the image of Zion's betrayal burned permanently into her mind. A cold silence filled the room, broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the designer wall clock, each second a mocking echo of how long she had ignored what was right in front of her. Her thoughts drifted backward, pulling her into memories she had buried beneath optimism and denial. The first red flag had come months ago, just after her second trimester had begun. Zion had started going on frequent overnight business trips, always last minute, always vague about the details. When she'd ask who he was meeting or what the deal was about, he'd offer a tight smile and say, "Nothing big. Just routine expansions." But Zion didn't do routine. He was precise, calculated, transparent, until suddenly he wasn't. Then there were the phone calls. He used to take every call around her, sometimes even putting it on speaker. But over time, the calls became whispers behind closed doors. His voice would drop an octave, become quieter, warmer, more intimate. If she happened to walk into the room mid-call, the conversation would end abruptly, and his smile would vanish. He'd lock his phone afterward, always keeping it face down or hidden in his jacket pocket. She remembered one night in particular, when she had woken up at 3 a.m. to find the bed empty. Padding down the hallway, she heard Zion's voice, low, laughing, from his office. Through the half-closed door, she saw him sitting on the sofa, barefoot, a glass of wine in his hand, and a glow on his face she hadn't seen in weeks. "I miss you too," he had whispered into the phone. Soon. She never asked who he was talking to. She told herself it was probably a late-night call with a partner overseas. But deep down, something twisted inside her. Something she didn't want to name. And then there was the flowers incident. She had been sitting in the home office, managing some emails, when Zion's assistant called on the landline by mistake. Layla answered cheerfully, but the assistant, thinking it was Zion, said, "Hi sir, I just wanted to confirm, 24 white orchids to be delivered to AS at the Waldorf this evening?" Layla froze. "Who is AS?" she asked cautiously. A pause. "Oh, I'm sorry, I must have misdialed." The line went dead. Zion brushed it off later. A business associate. She helped close a deal. But the lie had been too smooth, too fast. And yet, Layla had let it go. She told herself she was being paranoid. She reminded herself that hormones could make her overthink things. But now, each ignored moment came rushing back with brutal clarity. The business trips. The secret calls. The tossing and turning, excuse that pushed him into the guest room. The flowers. The smile that wasn't meant for her. Her heart cracked not just from betrayal, but from the realization that she had seen it coming and still clung to hope. She had loved him blindly. And he had loved someone else. The sky had already turned dusky purple by the time Layla heard the familiar beep of the front gate unlocking. She didn't flinch. She didn't pace. She simply stood at the center of the living room, poised in her silk maternity dress, hands gently cradling her belly as if shielding it from what was about to come. Her heart was thudding, yes, but her tears had dried hours ago. Zion stepped inside, dressed in a crisp linen shirt, sunglasses tucked into the collar, a faint scent of saltwater and cologne clinging to him. He looked tan, relaxed, like a man who had just come back from paradise. His eyes met hers briefly, then dropped to his phone. "You're home early," he said casually, setting his keys on the marble console. She didn't answer. She reached for her phone and turned the screen toward him. The Instagram post he had shared that morning lit up the screen in high definition. The photo. The caption. The tag. He glanced at it and gave a small, almost indifferent shrug. "So." Her voice was steady. "How long, Zion?" He blinked. "Seriously?" She didn't raise her tone. "How long have you been sleeping with her?" Zion sighed, as if the question inconvenienced him. "Layla, don't do this. You're pregnant. Your hormones are all over the place. You're blowing this out of proportion." She said nothing. He continued, walking past her to pour himself a glass of water. "I didn't hide it. I posted the damn photo. I'm not cheating behind your back. It's just life. Things change. People drift." She followed him silently into the kitchen, every word he said feeling like a new slap across the face. "So you admit it." He took a slow sip, then turned around and leaned against the counter. "Yes. Fine. I'm seeing Amara. No apology. No guilt. Just confirmation. She understands me in ways you don't anymore," he said flatly. "She listens. She doesn't make me feel suffocated or like I'm always doing something wrong. I feel free with her." Layla blinked, absorbing every syllable like shards of glass. "Suffocated," she repeated softly. "Because I carried your child? Because I stood beside you while you built your empire?" Zion looked uncomfortable for the first time but didn't answer. "Amara is a phase," she continued, voice trembling. "She's shiny and new. But when that shine fades, when your chaos becomes boring to her, what then?" Zion narrowed his eyes. "You've always had this way of making everything about morality and sacrifice. Sometimes people just fall out of love." Layla stepped closer, her hand protectively over her belly. "I didn't fall out of anything. You chose to climb out. And you didn't just leave me, you embarrassed me in front of the world." He scoffed. "God, you sound dramatic." "No," she said. "I sound like a woman who's done." He raised an eyebrow. "Done." She nodded, calm, but shaking inside. "You can go to her, Zion. You already have. I won't stop you." He chuckled, unsure if she was serious. "I'll see you in court," she said. The glass in his hand paused mid-air. "Court?" She looked him dead in the eye. "You posted your mistress. I'll be posting divorce papers." For the first time all evening, Zion had nothing to say. The next morning, Layla walked into a sleek, glass-walled office in downtown Dubai wearing a loose white abaya and dark sunglasses. Her face was calm, but inside her heart pulsed with fury and resolve. She was no longer the woman who had once begged for Zion's attention. She was now a woman on a mission, to protect her child, her dignity, and everything she had helped build. Across the polished conference table sat Mariam Al-Sayegh, one of the most formidable family law attorneys in the country. Known for her precision, fearlessness, and an undefeated record when it came to high-profile divorces, Mariam was infamous among the wealthy elite. She didn't flinch at celebrity names or billion-dollar portfolios. She won cases, cleanly, ruthlessly, and with a smile. Layla laid her phone on the table and opened a folder she'd compiled all night. "I want to file for divorce," she said without hesitation. "And I want everything I'm owed. No compromises." Mariam flipped through the documents, screenshots of Zion's Instagram post, photographs of Amara Sheikh in his private villa, text message logs, and time-stamped calendar entries showing overlapping timelines of business trips and rendezvous. Then came the financials. Bank statements. Investment holdings. Layla had been quietly documenting everything over the past month, trusting her instincts even before the betrayal went public. "You've been thorough," Mariam noted with a nod of approval. This will not be a clean fight. But with this evidence, it will be a fair one. And we'll win. Zion had forgotten something critical in his arrogance. In the early days of his now booming tech startup, when all he had was a concept and a maxed-out credit card, it was Layla who invested her personal savings to keep the company alive. It was Layla who co-wrote the pitch decks, managed investor emails, and connected him with her father's business network. The business may have his name on it, but the foundation was as much hers as his. And the marriage contract reflected it. Signed in more naive, hopeful days, it included a clause acknowledging her contributions to his early ventures. That clause, now dusty and overlooked by Zion, would become the sword that split his empire in two. When the divorce petition was filed, the news spread like wildfire. A media frenzy erupted. Zion Malik, Dubai's golden boy, tech visionary, husband of the elegant Layla Khan, was now exposed as a man who publicly flaunted an affair while his pregnant wife prepared to leave him. Headlines blared across entertainment sites and business journals alike. Layla Khan files for divorce, demands half of Malik tech fortune. From power couple to public scandal, the fall of Zion and Layla. Social media exploded. Twitter trended for 48 hours straight. Hashtag billionaire breakup. Hashtag justice for Layla. Hashtag pregnant and powerful. Women from around the world posted videos in support of Layla. Influencers spoke out about betrayal, boundaries, and bravery. What Zion had tried to frame as a personal change of heart was now a national conversation about infidelity, dignity, and power dynamics in marriage. Zion, blindsided, called Layla through mutual contacts, asking to talk privately. He tried to suggest a discreet settlement, a quiet, dignified exit. But Layla had made her choice. There would be no silence, no cover-up, no favor. She wasn't just filing for divorce, she was filing for justice. The fallout came faster than Zion ever anticipated. Within 24 hours of Layla's divorce filing hitting the press, Malik Tech's pristine reputation began to unravel. The company's official Instagram page, once a symbol of innovation and sleek success, was flooded with comments accusing Zion of being a liar, a cheater, and a disgrace. Followers began unfollowing by the thousands. Prominent tech influencers who once praised his vision now posted cryptic tweets about men who betray the women who built them. The company's brand image, built on values of transparency, progress, and community, was now poisoned by scandal. Several corporate partners quietly pulled out of pending deals. A major global fintech investor issued a public statement expressing serious concerns about Malik Tech's leadership stability. Shareholders began demanding internal reviews. Internally, team morale plummeted. Employees whispered in elevators and break rooms. No one wanted to be associated with a CEO who had humiliated his pregnant wife in front of the world. Meanwhile, Amara Sheik's social media presence disintegrated in real time. Once adored for her luxurious lifestyle and beauty content, she now faced a tidal wave of rage. Her comment sections were brutal. Home wrecker. You'll never be Layla. Enjoy the yacht while it lasts, sweetheart. After 36 hours of relentless trolling, she disabled comments entirely. Within a week, she was dropped from 3 major skincare sponsorships and a jewelry brand partnership. Public sympathy, once loosely in her favor, had turned to disgust. Her curated, pastel-filtered world began to collapse around her. Zion, watching his empire bleed, finally cracked. He tried to reach Layla, not through his assistant, not through his lawyer, but directly. He called her. Once. Twice. Then again. He left voice notes, text messages. We don't have to do this in front of the world, Layla. Let's talk. Just you and me. Be civil, for the baby's sake. But Layla never picked up. She read the messages but didn't reply. She didn't need to. Her silence spoke louder than any words. He had made his betrayal public. Now, he could deal with the consequences, publicly. For Zion Malik, the fall wasn't just personal. It was professional. His legacy was no longer about innovation or tech brilliance. It was about the woman he betrayed, and the power she reclaimed. Desperate to salvage her reputation, Amara Sheikh scheduled an exclusive interview with a lifestyle magazine known for celebrity redemptions. Dressed in a demure beige blouse with minimal makeup, she appeared a far cry from the glamorous, jet-setting influencer people knew. The headline read, "Amara breaks her silence, betrayed by love or caught in a lie?" With carefully timed pauses and glassy eyes, Amara leaned into the narrative of innocence. "I didn't know Zion was still married," she said softly. "He told me they were separated, that the papers were already in motion. I would never have gotten involved if I knew he was still living with his wife, let alone that she was pregnant." She described Zion as charming but misleading, a man who fed her stories about an empty marriage and emotional abandonment. "He told me she was just a business partner now, that they were only staying under the same roof for appearances." Her voice broke. "I never wanted to hurt anyone." The interview trended for a few hours. Some people hesitated. Could she have really been misled too? But then the truth broke. A popular gossip blog released a series of leaked WhatsApp screenshots between Amara and one of her close friends, dated weeks before the infamous Instagram post. The texts were damning. "He's still living with her, but he says it's almost over. She's pregnant, which is complicated, but he says he never wanted the baby. Once the divorce is out, we can go public. I'm tired of hiding." One message even read, "His wife is clueless. I almost feel bad for her." The internet exploded. Public sympathy, which had begun to fracture, now swung entirely in Layla's favor. Twitter and TikTok lit up with fury. She lied to cover her tracks. She knew she was the other woman and didn't care. Imagine playing victim after laughing behind a pregnant woman's back. Amara quickly went into digital hiding, deleting hundreds of comments and disappearing from Instagram stories. But the damage was done. The mask had fallen. And if Zion had thought Amara would help him rise from the ashes, he was now watching her ignite them even faster. Layla, on the other hand, didn't say a word. She didn't need to. The world was already speaking for her. The final months of Layla's pregnancy unfolded in a haze of contradictions. Her body grew heavier, her belly round and firm, carrying the child that once symbolized the height of her love with Zion, now a bittersweet reminder of what had been lost. Sleep became a rare visitor, replaced by long, restless nights filled with aching hips, anxiety, and the occasional sharp jab of heartbreak that stole her breath. Some nights, she sat by the nursery window in silence, watching the moonlight wash over the crib she had chosen months ago, back when she still believed her daughter would be born into a perfect family. The media refused to leave her alone. Paparazzi camped outside her gated estate, drones occasionally buzzed above her property, and reporters speculated about everything, from whether she would keep Zion's last name to what she would wear to court. Some headlines were sympathetic, others cruel. The attention was exhausting, but Layla refused to let it consume her. Support began to bloom from unexpected corners. Thousands of women reached out online, flooding her inbox with stories of survival, betrayal, and strength. Some were strangers. Others were public figures who had quietly endured the same humiliation behind closed doors. Hashtags like #IamLayla and #TheOtherSideOfPerfect trended for days, uniting women across the world in solidarity. Her mother, once distant and traditional, showed up with a suitcase and tearful eyes, holding Layla's hands as she whispered, "I'm sorry for not seeing what you were going through. But I'm here now. For you and my granddaughter." That changed something in Layla. Amidst the chaos, her pain began transforming, not into numbness, but into power. She bought a leather-bound journal and began writing late into the night. Every memory, every lie, every flicker of hope. She wrote not just about Zion's betrayal, but about her own silence, her sacrifices, the way she lost herself in someone else's shadow without realizing it. The words poured out like medicine, and with them came an idea. A project. A purpose. She contacted a female-led film production company and pitched a concept, a short documentary that would expose not just her story, but the unspoken realities behind many picture-perfect marriages of the rich and powerful. She titled it, The Other Side of the Mansion. It would be raw, unfiltered, a love story turned survival tale. For the first time in weeks, Layla felt something close to peace. Not because her heart had healed, but because she had finally found a way to reclaim her voice. This wasn't the ending of her story. It was the beginning of something far greater. The courtroom was cold and quiet, its marble floors gleaming beneath the high arched windows. Reporters waited outside in a tight cluster, their cameras ready, their voices hushed as if aware something monumental was about to unfold. Inside, Zayn Malik sat at the defendant's table, freshly shaven, dressed in an expensive tailored suit that did little to hide the tension etched across his face. He looked thinner, more tired. But still, his eyes darted around with the arrogance of a man used to winning, even when he had clearly lost. Layla entered minutes later, accompanied by Mariam Al-Sayegh, her attorney. She wore no makeup, her hair pulled into a soft bun, a pale blue maternity dress draping over her full belly. She walked with poise, chin high, eyes focused straight ahead. If Zayn had hoped to see a broken woman, he was sorely mistaken. The trial began quickly. Zayn's legal team attempted to paint him as a man under pressure, a stressed executive who made mistakes in a moment of emotional weakness. He even took the stand, speaking in a carefully rehearsed tone. "I never meant to hurt Layla," he said, hands folded on his lap. "We had grown apart. I was lonely. I acted selfishly, yes. But I never stopped caring about her. I'm sorry." Layla sat still, unmoved. Then Mariam stood. She presented a timeline of Zayn's affair, matching hotel records, flight logs, WhatsApp messages, and public Instagram posts. Each piece of evidence stacked against him like a row of daggers. She played a recorded phone call between Zayn and Amara where he laughed about Layla being too distracted with the pregnancy to notice anything. A hush fell over the room. Then came the financials. Mariam revealed hidden accounts, undeclared crypto transfers, and an attempt to move assets offshore just weeks before the divorce filing. The final blow was a private email Zayn had sent to his CFO, referring to Layla as a non-threat and saying, "She'll fold. She always does." But this time, she didn't. The judge deliberated briefly. His verdict was firm and clear. Given the overwhelming evidence of infidelity, manipulation, and attempted financial concealment, the court awarded Layla 50% of Zayn's total assets and investment holdings, full ownership of their Palm Jumeirah residence, primary custody of their unborn child, with strict visitation guidelines. Zayn sat frozen, lips slightly parted, the verdict ringing in his ears like gunfire. His lawyer placed a hand on his arm, but he didn't move. The cameras outside would capture the moment he stepped into the sunlight, not as a billionaire icon, but as a man undone by his own arrogance. Layla walked out moments later to thunderous applause from a small crowd of women gathered near the entrance. She didn't wave, didn't speak. She simply placed a hand over her stomach and smiled, the kind of smile that meant freedom. Zayn had lost more than money. He had lost the one woman who had once believed in him completely. And that loss was something no court could ever repair. The delivery room was quiet except for the gentle beeping of monitors and the muffled hum of hospital activity outside. Layla's hair clung to her forehead, damp with sweat, her fingers tightly gripping the sheets. She had endured hours of labor, but she didn't complain once. Not when the contractions hit like tidal waves. Not when her body screamed from exhaustion. She had survived betrayal, humiliation, and legal war. She would survive this too. And then, at 4:03 a.m., a cry pierced the silence. A nurse gently placed the newborn in her arms. A girl, pink and wrinkled, with a tuft of dark hair and tiny fists balled up against her chest. Layla stared at her daughter, tears finally spilling down her cheeks, not from pain, but from something deeper. Something holy. The child blinked up at her, as if already knowing she had arrived in the arms of a fighter. "Noor," Layla whispered, brushing a kiss against the baby's forehead. "Your name means light." Because that's what you are. My light after the storm. Days passed in a calm, healing blur. The media had gone quieter now. The world had moved on to fresher scandals, newer headlines. But for those who followed Layla's story, her victory remained a symbol of strength, a reminder that not every woman who's broken stays broken. Weeks later, Layla stood on stage at a prestigious women's empowerment conference, invited as the keynote speaker. The hall was packed: entrepreneurs, students, survivors, leaders. A backdrop behind her read, "Voices that changed the narrative." She wore a simple black dress and a gold pendant with Noor's name engraved on it. In her arms, she held her daughter, peacefully sleeping, unaware that her presence alone was rewriting history. When Layla stepped up to the microphone, the room hushed. "I was once part of a picture-perfect story," she began, her voice clear. "The kind people envy on social media. Until I found out I was only part of it. He was writing another one behind my back." A quiet ripple moved through the audience. "He posted a photo to show off his mistress," she said, pausing. "I posted court papers to protect my daughter's future." Applause began slowly, then grew into a thunderous roar. Zion stood at the very back of the auditorium, unnoticed by most. No reserved seat, no spotlight, no status. Just a man watching the woman he discarded rise far beyond his reach. He clapped too, softly. But the sound was drowned out by the crowd around him, cheering not for him, but for the woman he underestimated. Layla stepped down from the stage, her daughter safe in her arms, her head held high. It was not the life she had once imagined. It was better.